talking about a Hallmark or Hallmark-like movie from the perspective of relationships and friendship and other perspectives. And I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and we have relationship expert Dr. Alysa Lucas is here. Thank you so much for coming and doing
Yes,
another episode.
absolutely. I'm excited about this one.
Yes. So this one, it is TV mature. So if, you, if that's not your jam, probably don't listen to this one.
Yeah,
Move
that's
on
fine
to
if
one
it's
of
not
the
your
other
jam. We're
episodes.
not here to yuck anyone's yum, but if it's not your jam, that's
Yes.
okay.
We're talking about Set It Up on Netflix.
Although I do have to say, when you sent me a text about how it was mature, I was like, okay. But I grew up on Lifetime, so everything I watched was mature.
Well, I mean, it was raunchier than I remembered. I have to
Yeah.
be honest about that. But
Yeah.
I
Yes.
thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's going to be, I think, fun to talk about. It's a pretty simple movie, actually. So this might be a short episode, but we're going to talk about it. But yeah, Set It Up on Netflix. This is from 2021. 2018. What am I saying? This is from 2018. And it's two corporate executive assistants hatch a plan to match make their two bosses. So overall, what did you think about this movie?
Overall? I thought it was hilarious. I laughed out loud several times, which, don't always do, even if something is funny. You're just kind of like, oh, uh-huh. But this one was like, I laughed out loud so many times, and maybe it's because it was mature. I don't know. But I enjoyed it. I also was pleasantly surprised by the lead female actress.
Zoe Douche.
Yeah, she is Leah Thompson's daughter.
Yes.
I looked that up. I looked her up and I was like, what else has she been in? She looks so familiar. And she is in other movies I've seen, like Buffaloed and some other stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that she was Leah Thompson's daughter, and you can see the family resemblance, I think.
Yes. No, she's great. And I think let's get the superficial stuff out of the way at the top. This movie, I think, pound for pound, has, I think, the most attractive cast of any movie on Netflix.
I mean, come on. Taye Diggs.
Woo!
Yeah, when
Lucy
Rachel
Liu, Glenn Powell.
Yeah, when you suggest this movie and I looked at the trailer, I was like, Taye Diggs is in it. That's all you had to say. Next movie, Taye Diggs. And I would have been like, okay.
Even like even like the side characters, the other people, the other relationships are gorgeous. Yeah. So evidently everyone isn't this. I think it's in New York City, right?
Yes.
Everyone in New York City is gorgeous. Yeah.
Apparently,
it's in New York City. So I'm glad I don't live there. It would be a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Phew. I got that Midwest pressure.
Yeah. And I think that Glenn Powell and Zoe Douche have such amazing chemistry. It just sparks.
Yeah, they're so fun. I really like the two of them together. As friends, and then spoiler alert, as you might imagine, we'll get there.
Yeah, and so it starts out showing all of these different assistants and the runaround that they get. And I think maybe part of the reason why I think this movie works is because this kind of assistant job is like my nightmare. I would rather do almost anything than work like the corporate slumming it out jobs.
It's very Devil Wears Prada, know, and it just doesn't seem like there's any redeeming qualities about the job, to be perfectly honest. It just feels like you're treated like trash and you can't go home, and when do you eat, and do you have money, do you get paid enough? I don't know.
It's like the only vindication is supposedly what will come, and they talk about how, well, I've been at this for 3 years, I can't give up now, and that 3 years will be a waste. And
Yeah.
I totally get that. I actually remember feeling that way with a corporate job that I had that I hated and I was miserable, and I wasn't an assistant. I was more the receptionist slash dump every project that had to be done
Yeah.
in the office on me. And
No
but you do feel
thanks.
that way. It's like I put in 3 years. I can't stop now like this, because you always think like, well, the next thing will be the big kind of break. Like I'm
Yeah.
almost there. And I think you are always feel like, oh, I'm almost there. And I mean,
But you never are.
you never
Like, you never
are.
are.
Yeah.
So it's just the same old thing, just a different day.
Yeah. And they like try to redeem Kirsten in this at the end and be like, oh, you're so kick butt and you're so and kind of try to give her an out. But I don't know if I totally do, because she still has made Harper's life miserable for years and years. So
Yeah.
I don't
So it's
I
like
don't
we're supposed to think that because she isn't as terrible as Taye Diggs' character, which I'm blanking on his name. Is it Derek?
Rick.
Rick. No, I
Yeah.
knew Derek has Rick in it. So there you go. I
Oh
was
yeah.
close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Right.
But they were both terrible, but because she wasn't as terrible, yeah, we're supposed to like her.
Yeah.
But they're all the same. Like they're the bosses that treat the employees terribly. And
Yeah.
it's like, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, that's the way it's done, or that's the way it's always been, or you have to go through it so that you can then do it to oh,
Excuse me.
you have to go through it so then you can put someone else through it. And it's
Yeah.
like a vicious cycle. And it's like, no, we don't, there's a little academia here, academics is a little toxic. And so it's very
Yeah.
much like, well, I was treated this way, so I'm gonna treat other people this way. And it's like, no, how about we not? How about
Yeah.
we say, let's treat people better and start a new cycle and it
Yeah, like
be positive and
slavery is illegal.
rewarding.
Yeah, like slavery is illegal in America. Like this
When
should not be
also
happening. It's brutal.
and it's unethical, immoral, and so many more things that yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that it's not really this bad, but
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know. Like
all I've
I
seen is
just
The Devil Wears Prada in this movie, so I'm assuming it's terrible.
yeah, yeah. It certainly wasn't for me. I can tell you that. I absolutely hated that, like I called it cubicle hell going in every day to like, oh, it just, I don't know. It was like where I was at, my office had like no windows. I was just,
Well,
I mean, it was just awful. My boss was awful. She was so just unrelenting with me and well, with everybody, but I was the only one that she was supposed to manage. And, she was rude to everybody in the office, but
just
yeah, it's
and
brutal.
what's worst is people allow it to happen,
Yeah.
so there's probably someone who could put a stop to it or has the power to do so, and they just let it continue.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Yeah. And I would personally like way rather like work in a service job that's
Mhm.
grueling and difficult, but you're with people, like I'm working in a movie theater now, and I would way rather do that than the corporate office
Yeah.
cubicle job, but that's just me. But
Yeah, what did I
yeah,
say at the beginning? We're not going to yuck someone's yum.
Yeah.
So if you love it, you do you.
That's right. That's right. But they definitely play up the horrors
Yeah.
of this job for the sake of this movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the beginning, he's literally holding inside his juice, like opening it for him and holding it for him. And then he's like, well, why didn't you schedule me breakfast? And he's like, I thought you just wanted juice. And so, yeah, it's a lot. And then she has this like story idea for this Jerry Olympics for old people. It's like an ESPN Sports Illustrated kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
where she works. So Harper
Yeah.
works there with Lucy Liu's character, and Lucy Liu is the boss.
yeah. And I guess I would say to her, I don't understand why she wasn't just like pitching lots of ideas. Why it seemed
Yeah.
like this was the only idea. And anybody who's in like journalism at all, you're like pitching nonstop. And then you're lucky you get like a couple of them picked. I mean, I did that for a while and I got a couple picked, and then I just kind of was just so busy with lots of other stuff that I kind of stopped that game. But yeah, I mean, that is definitely my experience, is that you're just pitch.
Basically, she needs more eggs in her basket.
Yeah.
'cause-
So I
Yeah,
think that
that
might have
seemed
been
weird
part
to
of her
me, too.
problem, is she was
Yeah.
just stuck on this Jerry Olympics idea.
Which is a great idea, but there's also probably more sports related things out there that she could also
Yeah.
talk about and pitch.
Also, then she orders dinner for her boss, and she orders 2 dinners. And then she gets down there and it's cash only. And so obviously this 2018, I guess she didn't have Venmo or the other services or whatever. So he comes down, he buys her boss's food, and they like split it up. She puts the macaroni and cheese on the burger, and he takes the pickle, eats it himself. He's like eating it in the elevator. Pickles just for me. But I find this a strange order that she made for her boss, because I find I cannot believe that Kirsten would be up for eating a burger and macaroni and cheese. That seems not her type to me.
Maybe it's like a secret want, like she really wants a salad, but if she
maybe.
brought her a salad, she'd get in trouble. So she's like, here's the truffle mac and cheese. And here's the thing. If there was cheese on that burger, I'd slam both.
Yeah. I mean, I would, but she
I
seems
would
like the
slam
kind of,
the burger
like-
with truffle mac and cheese on it, just like she made. I'd eat that too.
but doesn't Kirsten seem like someone who would be like only eat gluten-free keto, like
Yeah,
stuff
yes.
like that. So
something
that's
very
just-
difficult because she's in a position that makes it hard for assistants to get anything right. So absolutely.
Yeah, well, that people like Kirsten and Rick, they are so demanding that they make it like 3 times as likely that you're going to fail. So when you do
Mhm.
fail, then they're extra hard on you, and it's just like it's a like revolving process of it's like a circle of control.
Yeah.
You're always screwing up, and then you're always having to do more, and that makes you screw up more. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
bad. It's a cycle.
Time to get off that merry-go-round.
I will never again, never. And then we get, I think that Harper is an interesting character because she is very driven, it seems like, but also scared to like actually put herself out there, actually start writing. But she's also very emotional, which you don't typically see in her type of character. Like she's like crying at sports games and just kind of upset about things. So I don't know. So I thought she was an interesting character, Harper.
Yeah, I think that she is, as we talked about, she's sort of stuck in this position and she only has one idea and she doesn't write because she's afraid she's going to fail. So it's sort of like imposter syndrome, which I totally get. Like, yeah, absolutely. But she does seem to be someone who loves sports. And so I don't know, maybe being stuck in the position makes her cry a little bit during a good football game.
Yeah.
Maybe she's just burned out. That's her stress coming through.
I could see that. I really could. So she misses her date at the beginning, and then he also misses his date. He's dating this woman named Susie, Suze.
It's Suze.
Or Suze, yeah.
That's what he calls her.
And she's gorgeous. But just kind of there. It's one of those relationships that has just become kind of transactional.
Yeah, I don't see how either one of them have anything in common with the other.
Yeah, aside
The
from
only
both
thing is
being,
she's pretty, but
yeah,
that's about it.
yeah. Aside from both being beautiful people, they don't have a ton in common. But he's so busy that I don't think that he's really taken the time to get to know her, or I don't know what her schedule's like, but it seems like
she's probably seeing other people and it works out great.
Probably. But you have to put in a little bit of time to make a relationship work. You have to get to know each other a little bit.
Absolutely. If you don't know anything about them, then what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
Something else is going on there if you don't know each other.
What did you think of Pete Davidson as the gay roommate?
He was funny, but unbelievable. Not believable.
Yeah,
maybe that's because he's dated every woman under the sun, but maybe
that's true. I didn't even think about that, but
I didn't see him as very believable in his character. To me, whenever I see him, he's Pete Davidson, so I think he has that sort of vibe where it's hard for him to be anything other than himself. And so, but sometimes he's funny, and that's what he was in this movie. Sometimes he was funny.
Yeah.
What did you think of him?
Well, he can be kind of annoying to me, to be honest, but
yeah.
But I thought that he was fine for me. I don't think he was as famous in 2018.
Yeah.
As he
is. He certainly
now.
wasn't dating a Kardashian then.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I didn't even think about the fact that he's dated all these women. But it's acting, so but yeah, I mean, it was funny enough. It was to have this kind of bohemian type a person as this roommate. And I don't know who her roommate is. It's not on IMDb, but she was funny. Her roommate gets engaged, and she's kind of like, what? But it was cute. And then let's see, I lost my place. Okay. Then Rick is just like destroying everything. He fires the pencil assistant. That was funny. And
then, he's completely unreasonable, this guy.
I mean, ridiculous.
He destroyed a laptop that wasn't his and just said, oh, give me my laptop, when he realized it was his assistant's.
Yeah. It's like he has major anger issues. And he had been married to this woman named Kiki, who's like going through a divorce, but they are still like hooking up or whatever. But yeah, aside from him being Ty Diggs, who's incredibly attractive, there's not much going for this guy.
No, he's a jerk.
He's a jerk, man. He is worse than Kirsten, but they're both pretty thoughtless. Terrible. Like, he's more violent than Kirsten.
He's also playing the field, if you will. So I think that is seen as morally reprehensible, and which is why we're supposed to like Kirsten more.
Yeah.
She doesn't.
Yeah. But just as far as being a boss, they're pretty similar, but he's the more like violent one. So it's worse. And then so they're like drinking shots, and they kind of talk about why they're staying with this, and Harper claims she's never had a boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
which seems hard to believe.
Yeah.
Zoe Touche, she's gorgeous.
Leah Thompson's daughter.
And basically they say that the bosses need to get together because it'll take away some time, and then they can it's kind of like in what's the one where they're like, it's in White Christmas, when Danny Kaye is saying that he wants I think Crosby to get married, and if he has like 7 children and he spends just 10 minutes a day with each of those children, then that's 70 minutes of freedom in his life that he'll have, something like that. And that's basically what they're saying, is that like if they spend any time at all with this significant other, then they would be free.
Yeah, they will be free.
Yeah. And so they decide to Cyrano them.
Yes. Which the one guy didn't know what it was.
Yeah, which is funny.
Like, haven't you ever seen Roxanne? Oh my God, classic Steve Martin movie.
Yes. In fact, if you want to read my thoughts on Roxanne, you should check out on our Patreon. We have I'm doing the AFI Passions project, where it's a list, AFI 100 movies, 100 passions. And I'm almost half done, which is pretty exciting. And probably by the time this airs, I will be done. Every Sunday, there's a new post, and Roxanne was one of them. So, but like Cyrano's obviously a classic story where you have the man with the nose who's in love with long nose who's in love with Roxanne, and you've got the handsome Christian who gets the poetic words from Cyrano.
Mm-hmm.
So she falls in love with the wrong man. She falls in love with the words of Cyrano, and of course she realizes that eventually, and it's a beautiful story. There's a musical version of it released in last year with or the year before, 2021, with Peter Dinklage.
What?
So instead of it being a nose, it was this stature.
Oh, yeah,
it's really good. You should check it out.
I love Peter Dinklage. He's amazing.
Oh, he's so good. You'd like it. Anyway, so that's what they're doing. And then let's see here. So then he goes to the school play with the girlfriend, with Suze, and he saves seats for Rick and girlfriend, I guess. And anyway, his girlfriend says, I want the guy whose seats are being saved. And she's tired of this kind of thing. Like, he's literally going to Rick's kids' elementary school production.
and also doing his science project too.
And then when Rick gets there, he's like, what's going on? Why are we so high up? You're going to have to schedule me a massage. That was funny.
He's like, I'm 3 centimeters from the stage.
Okay, so then they're trying to get this meet cute going, and I think that the script did a really good job of weaving in these rom-com tropes that in a like it wasn't quite parody, but it was a wink wink kind of a thing, which was fun. Yeah. And so they're trying to make this meet cute, and she's like, every great romance has a meet cute. And so they go down to the basement, and there's lonely basement guy.
Creepy Tim.
Creepy Tim. And they bring him a succulent plant, and he says, the only thing I love more than love is love in enclosed spaces and succulents, and you already gave me one of those.
Hello. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Katie, and we have a podcast called
One Kiss Means Forever. Do you love made-for-TV rom-coms?
Are you obsessed with Hallmark and all the Hallmark-inspired copycats that have come out on other platforms like Netflix?
And while being obsessed, do you know that these are not what one might call quality film?
If so, come listen to our podcast. Each episode, we discuss one movie that did not have a theatrical release and always ends in a happily ever after.
And how do we know it will end in a happily ever after?
Because one kiss means forever, of course.
So join us as we deep dive into each movie for about 45 minutes.
Episodes drop every other Thursday, except during the very elongated Hallmark Christmas season when we join the Christmas craze and go weekly for about 2.5 months. Bye!
So the Creepy Tim is played by Titus Burgess, who, if you all had watched Schmigadoon season 2, he plays the narrator in that, which is really fun. I loved Schmigadoon, and I have recaps on my other channel with some of my theater friends, but he was really, really good in that, especially the last episode. He got to shine, I think, the most in that last episode of the season. Yeah. So, but he was pretty funny, I thought. And then this whole scene is so outrageous with them they end up getting stuck in the elevator with like basically a UPS guy.
Air quotes. This is what Creepy Tim is there to do. He is to get them stuck in the elevator. Unfortunately, the UPS FedEx mail guy shows up.
And it was just funny, I thought, when he like completely strips down like immediately. Gets so overheated so fast, and then he pees into one of the jars.
He was like, I can't handle being stuck in an elevator. This is it.
That was really funny.
But not exactly a meet cute, that's for sure.
Did you think that was funny or too much?
I laughed.
Yeah.
I'm sure for some people it might have been too much.
So they try another meet cute at the Yankee Stadium. And they coordinate it so that they will get on the kiss cam. Which this kiss cam was very aggressive, and I think it was somewhat risky because, like, what if someone's sitting next to their like sister, or you know what I mean, like somebody that's just like a genuine friend, like
Well, if it was a genuine friend, it could have been like a kiss in the cheek, maybe, but also like kiss cam, let's consider consent. Like, don't force people to do stuff.
Yeah, just like move on, you know, like if it's not happening, just quickly move on. But this like stayed on him for a long time. And she's wearing like jersey to the Yankees game, and he's like, what are you wearing? And she's like,
he's like, I'm not on the team, I don't need a jersey.
She's like, I don't wear scrubs when I go to the doctor.
That was funny.
And this was a good line. I think guys think they like girls who like sports, but what they like are guys think they like girls who like sports, but what they like are girls who wear tight jerseys and like sports. I can see that. I don't know. Do guys like girls that like sports?
I think the idea is that they don't want someone who knows more than them, perhaps. Maybe that's sort of the idea there, that I think there's some controversy or scandal around it. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
You're talking to the wrong person. I like sports and I'm not dating anyone. So.
I used to like sports more when I was younger, but I just don't have time for it. It just is such a huge time suck. So I'm not like offended by sports. I'm not one of those girls, but I'm just like, I just don't have time.
I love sports. I watched the Celtics win at essentially the buzzer last night against the Heat, and they're going to game 7. at this point, well, by the time this comes out, we'll probably know who the champion is, but that's okay.
Yeah.
No, I
And
love sports,
yeah,
but
I
I
love the
feel
Olympics, but even that I sometimes don't have time for. I just,
not for the Olympics.
yeah, I do love the Olympics, and I try to make time for that. Although there's certain parts of it that have kind of lost some of their appeal from when I was little, just things like, I don't know, like the way that Russia behaves with their athletes, and, the way that
Yeah.
China is. See, it makes it a little bit harder sometimes to
Yeah, that's
kind
fair.
of spoils it a little bit, but I still overall enjoy the Olympics. But it's just, this is the thing with life is that you're constantly you kind of have like, I think you kind of have like a list of this is the most important stuff that I have to get done, right? And
Mhm.
then like things that you thought that were in the top can sometimes fall surprisingly low and end up getting cut, because you gotta finish those things. And now, especially now that I have like this part-time job, like some things are just gonna get cut. Like, I don't know if I'll ever watch season 3 of Ted Lasso. I just don't have time.
What?
Yep. I've heard it's not that great, and I just don't have time right now. Maybe someday I will have time. But I haven't watched the last season of Survivor at all. And there was a time where that was, I know, there was a time when that was a huge part of my life, but I just haven't had time. I've just been so busy with all the theater reviews I'm doing, with all the podcasts I'm doing. It is interesting how that happens. You think things that you never thought you would kind of lose Survivor was a huge part of my life for a long time. It's the whole reason this podcast got started, was because of friends that I met through Survivor. And now that just got cut. It's sad.
Interesting.
But eventually I hope to get to it. But
well, then I won't tell you who won.
It's okay. I don't care. But yeah, I still watch Top Chef, so I guess that somehow got cut. But
wow, interesting. Survivor over Top Chef.
The reverse. Top Chef over Survivor.
Well, that's what I meant. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying. Anyway, I just think that's the thing in life, is that like, part of it is that I'm making time for the things that are the most profitable and the most like rewarding, and then the other stuff, it just ends up having to, I don't know, it's just the way it is. It's a weird thing. But anyway, let's see here. Where were we? So they find out Rick and Kirsten spent the night together, but they definitely didn't sleep together, which seems very not Rick. Right?
Yeah.
She says it was like petting a kitten. And so she's got a date going to mini golf.
Harper, not Kirsten.
Yeah, Harper has a date going to mini golf, which I think is a totally respectable date. Do you agree?
Yes. Yeah, it seems fun.
Yeah, I think so. But he's very skeptical about the mini golf.
Yes.
Charlie is. Well, and I don't know if it's just because he's already kind of into her, and so he's a little bit jealous.
He's not really feeling the golf vibe guy.
Yeah. But the golf guy, I think, it looks like Jake Robinson is the name. He was very attractive, like everybody in this cast.
Yeah.
He was also very good. So then Pete Davidson talks to Charlie and is like, Suze sucks. And he says that your girlfriend is supposed to be your best friend. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, because he doesn't have conversations. What does Pete Davidson say? He says, who do you have intimate conversations with? He goes, you. And it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to work. But I would argue that you can have intimate conversations with your friends, but you probably should also be having them with your partner.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's become kind of transactional between these two as opposed to like any kind of real intimacy. And so then we have them like trying to control kind of every part of this relationship, the Cyrano of it all. They send each other flowers. So they're trying, she schedules the bikini wax for her, all the stuff to try to get them ready, and say that 2 ways to compliment a woman: the things she already thinks about herself but needs confirmed, and the things she doesn't think anybody notices about her. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is that they know their bosses so well that they can sort of orchestrate everything, because Charlie overhears Rick talking about, women, and then that leads to like the, what do you call it? The appointment for the bikini wax, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
like sending the flowers, but then also she sends Rick some alcohol, and we already know that he throws away anything that's under $200. And so that's, they know their bosses better than they know the people in their life otherwise, their
Yeah, that's
friends,
true.
their romantic partners, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And but I think that's generally that as far as the 2 ways to compliment a woman, I think that's pretty true, that she already thinks about herself but needs confirmed, and the things she doesn't think anybody knows about her. I would say that's also true for men. I don't see why that, I mean, that feels really good when someone notices something that that you don't think anybody else notices, and that confirmation, the need for confirmation. I think all of that is true. That feels good when people do that.
Who do you think compliments people more, men or women?
It's hard to say when you're talking about these sort of broad stereotypes. It's always hard, but I would say that in general, women can need more reinforcement in that way.
So then they do it more?
Hopefully the men in their life do it more. Do women then compliment more because they need it more? I don't know.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It could be.
I think that women compliment both men and women more than men compliment men or women.
Well, it could be because, again, we're talking in broad,
it's about socialization and things like that.
But like women tend to be the more caregivers in our society, as far as taking care of children and things like that, tends to be. And so I think that they're used to like that kind of positive reinforcement and nurturing than men tend to be.
I also think that women are socialized to be more in tune with their relationships, and so could probably notice more when a friend or a partner might need something.
Yeah.
Whether it be a compliment or support or whatever.
Yeah. So like if women are used to kind of reinforcing and complimenting children, and working with children, I think it makes sense that they would then also bring that to other relationships.
Well, and to bring it more specific, Rick is not very good at complimenting her. What is
no?
I see you. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So her friend has this engagement party, her roommate, and so they decide to go, and they have to get Rick and Kirsten to go away on a weekend so that then they'll be able to go to this party. And I liked when he's evaluating her texts. I think it was her text or email. He's like, "Go easy on the ha ha ha's."
Oh, her text messages to the mini golf guy.
Yeah, that was funny. That was very funny.
Well, again, he seems to be interested in her, so he doesn't seem to maybe like that she's talking to mini golf guy, but he's still with Sue's, and she went to a party with him and Pete Davidson's character and Sue's, and then he leaves Sue's to go to this party with Harper. So I think that's like a turning point where
Yeah.
maybe he's less into Sue's or realizing that they don't really have a lot to go on and that he might be a little bit more interested in Harper.
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
So then Rick and Kirsten have like a big fight. And Rick is like flipping out. He fires the mailman or tries to fire the mailman. And there's like, that's a U.S. government employee. That was funny. And then he's like, Kirsten says, so if I pay you to make my life easier and instead you make it harder, you're useless to me. And then Rick destroys the science experiment with the lemons. That made me so mad. I would have quit over that alone.
He was working so hard on those lemons.
And that's when they say, why don't you just quit? And he says, I spent 3 years and all this would be, and it would all be a waste. And then he says, nobody likes the actual work. That's the point of a job. You do the best one where you make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. I do think there is something to the something to the effect that like any work can be miserable if you're with the wrong people and it's not a good fit. Like you could have what on paper is like the ideal job, but if you're working with jerks, it's but at least for me, like I would rather be doing something that's maybe not as exciting on paper and I'm working with really nice people than something where I'm doing something exciting, but I'm working with jerks. Like, so like the work itself can only get you so far. The actual job that you're doing, if that makes sense.
It has a lot to do with the people.
Yeah. And to me, at least. The people, whether you can have a window, whether you can get a break, like things like that to me make a big difference than what it is you're actually doing.
Yeah. You're not doing lemon science projects that end up getting destroyed.
And so then they end up coming up with a new project, which then he's critical of because I guess it didn't win prizes or something. I don't know, but Rick is just the worst.
He just said that the lemons were better than their milk color project they came up with.
It's like, well, maybe I destroyed it. And so then she says, well, I work with Kirsten because she's the best at what she does, but I work so hard that everything is bad that I write. It feels like I might have lost any writing skill I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that too, that you're so tired, worn out that when you actually go to sit down to do something creative, it's hard to do it, which then makes you even more resentful of the life draining job because it's taken away this thing you love.
Well, yeah, and it's also like burnout. You're unable to sort of see what you're capable of doing because you've been beat down so much at the job, perhaps.
I remember, and I think I've told this story a couple times on the pod, but it's been a while. But when I was miserable in my job, there was this at church. There was this like service scavenger hunt for our Secret Santa for Sub for Santa, where you put up like different things you would do, and then people could bid on them and stuff like that. So I had put up I would make 3 meals for somebody. And there was this one
Mhm.
guy in my congregation that was a nice guy, but he was incredibly boring. Like I could never get him to actually like talk about anything. And you'd ask him, "Oh, what do you like? What's your like? What movies do you like? Or what you? Oh, I don't know. I don't know." Like, oh, it's just
Mm.
like, oh no. And so he bids on these dinners, and I'm like, oh, great, okay. And so I asked him what he wanted. He's like, just anything, but don't as long as it doesn't have mustard or mushrooms, I think is what he said. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
that's
interesting.
strange. But so I was just like, well, I'm just gonna make whatever I like. And so I had planned I was gonna make spaghetti and meatballs on a garden recipe, which is like so good. One of my
Mhm.
favorite meals. I gotten all the stuff, gotten ready, and then I ended up having to work until like 6 p.m. at this job that was horrible. And I didn't get back to the house to start making. And it's a pretty long recipe until probably close to 7 by the time I got there and got started and everything. And so he was like already there waiting, and I hadn't even barely started. And I was just like, I am making this meal if it kills me. And so I don't think we ate until like 10 p.m. It was long. And
Yeah.
I just was like eating this meal, and everybody else was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And I just was like, "This is the best meal I've ever eaten in my life." And I was like crying, and they were all like, "What's happening?" And I just remember thinking to myself that why isn't the rest of my life this good as this plate of pasta? Like,
Yeah.
and just feeling so like this is it. I cannot live this way anymore. And it was a real like
Yeah.
defining moment of like
I guess
that's
so.
it.
Yeah.
I'm
You're
done.
like, this is it. After I eat this pasta, I'm done.
Yes. And so I ended up it still took me until the end of the year to actually like quit, but that was the beginning of the process.
Wow.
And I think he thought I was insane, which I probably was at that point. But a very memorable moment because it was just I just remember thinking it's like I'm not letting this horrible job take something I love, one more thing from me that I love. This I'm making this meal, I don't care. Because that's what happens, and it just becomes this like tornado of misery that just
Yeah.
takes over your life when you have that kind of thing. It's the worst. So and so she's feeling that. She's feeling the tornado of misery where she can't
Yeah.
write, she can't, and then Charlie says you're a terrible assistant to her. And then that's when she makes the magic milk experiment.
Mhm.
It wasn't as good as the lemons, but it worked. I'm not 100% sure why they couldn't just get new lemons, but
I think it was a time thing, like he had
it was
been
just too
it's
long.
a timed event sort of situation.
Yeah. So then Rick gets sloshed, and Charlie says to Rick, why don't you tell her she's got her job, tell her you see her. And that's what he does. And then and it is a little bit surprising that Kirsten would fall for a line like that.
Yeah. Well, she does I think she's, like, laughing at him, but then it's like, maybe she thinks he's also joking and they're just having a fun moment, perhaps.
Yeah. So then golf guy, he hasn't called her back. And he says, the golf guy, she says, golf guy was perfect. And he's like, your bar for perfect is too low.
It's true.
Yeah. Then let's see what else. Then they go to the party, and there's some really fun like dancing scenes in this
Mhm.
section. They were really flirty. Becca's wild and drinks too much and never paid a bill on time, and yet you love her. There's this whole thing about and yet.
Yeah, it's that you like someone because of the qualities that they have, but you love someone, despite their qualities.
Yeah, she says, you like expensive stuff and let a 23-year-old walk all over you, and yet you're tolerable. And then there's you talk too fast and way too nice to everyone except me, apparently, and yet you are terrible, and yet you're a terrible dancer. So that was cute, a cute little thing, and yet. And then they have pizza, and they sneak into the fire escape to eat the pizza, and that did look good, that pizza.
Yeah, I could eat pizza right now.
Me too. So then Rick and Kirsten say they're going to get married, and so then they think this is good at first, but then pretty quick after, Charlie finds out that Rick is still with Kiki.
Yeah.
And
I think it's
Rick is like, hey, why don't you pick out the ring for Kirsten, which is lame, like not even pick out the ring.
Well, and then he doesn't even know how to pick out a ring. Like, he's at the ring shop, and then she's like, oh, this is for a wedding. I have another set of rings you can look at. He was picking out something that wasn't even a wedding ring.
Yeah.
Like, get it together, bro.
Yeah. And so then they start to get more conflicted. And so Harper finds out about Rick cheating. And she says, Charlie, you're worse than Rick. You could be a person, but you don't. You fall away from that. And he says, you're afraid. And then he says, you're afraid to not be an assistant anymore. So she goes and she tells Kirsten the whole truth. And she almost leaves the store by accident with the ring. And that was kind of funny. That was funny. And the assistant at the store, the clerk at the store was funny. I thought
she was like, I wasn't
know
listening.
your whole story.
It's like, I wasn't listening to y'all.
Yeah. So then Kirsten is at this baby shower, and then she fires Harper when she tells her about Rick. And then we get a scene with Suze going to this fanciest place in New York, and says this whole place sucks. It smells weird. It's far too quiet, and the steak is delicious, but it's not worth $70. I would say if this place is really the fanciest place in New York, $70. I mean, that's actually not that much.
I don't know. I've never been to a restaurant where a steak is $70.
I mean, it's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying for like the most expensive place, there's this, what's this one? There are a lot. I mean, there are a lot of places. Like here's one place, $280 for a tasting menu. Here's a place, $195, 4-course. $230 vegetarian tasting menu, $295 chef's tasting menu. Jean Georges, $268 for 6-course. So it's multiple courses. So I guess you could rationalize it that way. Yeah. But $338 for 10-course. 11 Madison Park, that's the one I was thinking of. That they're evidently really famous for their chicken. Yeah. Their roasted chicken. But $365 for 8 to 10-course tasting menu in the dining room. Anyway, not uncommon for
I guess not.
Yeah. If it's really that famous, let's see here. Here's one. Chef's Table at Brooklyn Fair, $430 for dinner. Per se, $355 tasting menu in the main dining room. So $70 is not that crazy.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying.
Moral of the story.
But he breaks up with Suze and calls Harper. And you get the rush to the airport scene with trying to stop Kirsten and Rick from getting married. And he quits. And he rushes to the airport to stop him from getting married, tells Kirsten to do better. And he quits, and and then she says, what's my favorite food? And Rick doesn't have any idea about any of her favorites. And then he calls her Kiki. It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah, he's overall terrible because he doesn't even know anything about her, and he's always relied on Charlie to do anything related to Kiki when they were married or, more consistently together.
Yeah.
And it's like he's expected to pick up and now know about Kirsten. And it's just like, maybe you have the capacity to hold on to a few nuggets of information about the person you're about to marry.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to kind of manipulate them, you think that you would actually pay attention to these things.
Yeah.
And I don't really understand what a person like him would really want to get married so quickly and so
because he's trying to beat Kiki to the altar because he wants Kiki back.
I mean, you would think
terrible.
You would think someone like him would kind of be living it up with a bunch of ladies, and maybe he is too. And Kiki's just, I don't know. So it's bad. Again, I don't really feel like Kirsten should totally get off the hook, but they kind of, when they meet up after she's leaving, she and Kirsten has kind of apologized for the way she treated Harper. Then they figure out, oh, Kirsten Cyranoed us, got us together at the same time. And then he's doing temp work and he says, I get to work different jobs to find out what I actually like. But I know I like you. Just cute. So much. You're not hard to get at all. You're hard to earn. That's so much better.
Oh.
And then she says, you displayed a total lack of character when it mattered. He's like, I know. But he tried to make it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how she gets after him for trying to be more like Rick than himself. And so she doesn't put up with it. And I like that.
But it's clever because she says all these bad things about him. And then that's when she says, and yet.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. And then they kiss. And it's a great kiss. Really, really good romantic comedy kiss, I would say, at the end.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the movie. So I think they have such great chemistry. It's genuinely funny, and it's got a great cast, and I enjoy it. I thought it was a really fun little movie.
I thought it was really funny, and I can't say that about a lot of romantic comedies. Like there's little things here or there, but like I laughed out loud so often. Yeah. Just really good lines and jokes and things like that. That was great. So this is the movie that we've watched together that I've laughed at the most.
Yeah. And to be frank, I couldn't say a lot of the jokes because they're on the raunchy side for Hallmark's podcast. They're there, I promise. It's really funny. So check it out on Netflix. Let us know what you think. And I'd be curious. I put on my Twitter, and there were a lot of people that were like, "It's so good, I love it, great rom-com." So check it out. And Alysa, where can people find you?
Yes, Best Forever's podcast is coming back June 16th, which may be before or after this comes out.
Yeah, great. That's so good.
And you can find me on Friends with Alysa on social media. And I will probably be soon changing my social media to Best Forever's Pod. But right now I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as Friends with Alysa.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmark's Pod and Hallmark's Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, 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 really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that. And thanks again. We'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.